Hello, good morning. Welcome. This is Lisa and Diane, but primarily Lisa Wessel, your women's health nurse practitioner. And we're back for another chat. And today we're going to talk about sex, but not
Woo
like
woo.
the sex talk you got, probably, maybe you got or didn't get, depending on how old you are, or where you grew up, and where you went to school, about the birds and the bees. I have questions for Lisa just about sexuality and women's sexuality, conflicting
It's
emotions
a word
around
today.
sex.
It's a word today.
It's a word today. We're going to make it a word today. So, um, I guess I'll start by asking you a question, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about the history of women's sexuality as you understand it, and going back to where it changed from women were like goddesses and worshipped, and sex
Gosh,
was
yeah.
pleasure and excitement, to all of a sudden buttoned up and you couldn't be out, and the scarlet letter and all the things, that sex became shameful.
Sex became shameful. I mean, I would like from a history standpoint, you probably know that better than I do, Diane. But I feel like sex for women, we were held in high regard. We still are. We it has just been kind of taken away. And it has turned into sex has often turned into something shameful. It's really interesting. Um not only raising two girls, but even myself, like sex was never for me, it wasn't ever shameful. It wasn't ever a bad thing. But we all know this, like somewhere along the like you were if having sex in high school, which is normal, kind of like a lot of women or women's sexual debut tends to be towards the end of high school, and it still has not changed. You are like somehow you are a slut, you are a whore, and men are praised for it. Like it's like way to go, and that hasn't changed much. Like, when you think about if I kept it more like in real time for myself, 52. I had sex for the first time. I was a total cliche. It was junior prom. I was 16. That was somewhat okay. I'd been with my boyfriend for a year. Like that's kind of how it worked. It was all right. I think the biggest thing is how do we go from being sluts or whores to these like great sexual partners. I think that is the disconnect that we constantly see when it comes to having sex. Like, when did that start? I don't know. When do you think that started? So, I mean,
Well,
I feel like it's been like that for so long.
it probably started around the time that Christianity became to sweep
Yeah.
across, the countries in Europe. And, before the Bronze Age, it was very much women were revered and goddesses and fertile.
Yeah.
And I mean, duh, we create life. Like, you
Right.
can't have one
Right.
without the other.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think that's probably, when they started to feel threatened by women and our
Yeah.
power and our sexuality, it became a tactic to shame and criticize and make sex for the only purpose of procreation.
Right. Well, it turned into like a religious thing,
And
that sort of
yeah,
thing.
really, like, you're a
Well,
bad person if you have sex before marriage. Like, somehow
yeah.
marriage was the gateway to having
Now
sex.
it's okay. Now it's okay. Well, and I think what's interesting when you look at that, like if you think about okay, let's pretend for a second that we all believe in a higher spirit, or we all were created in the like God created all of us. If we do that, if
Mhm.
we want to go that route, whether you believe that or not, but let's just pretend for a second that we do. Like then God or whoever created the clitoris. That's sole purpose, only purpose is for pleasure. That's it. So what does that
Right.
mean? If you like, you know what I mean? When you tie that all in, like men don't have that. You could probably go, they have their prostate, but like that's a tricky organ to get to. Like
Without some experience, maybe.
it's not as easy, but I mean, we can go with that too. Like, so there is like men do have a prostate. It's made of the same tissue as the clitoris. So like, okay, like, but we both like, okay, so then let's go with the fact that we both, men and women, have an organ in their body that is specific. But the prostate has other jobs to do.
Right.
But like, so as a woman, I have a clitoris that has like 8 to 10,000 nerve endings, and that's its only purpose. Its only purpose is for pleasure. So to me, that kind of goes back to like, yeah, we are goddesses, and like sex is supposed to be this amazing, wonderful thing, and you can do it by yourself. You can
Right.
do it with a partner. You can do it with a toy. But like, I think that's the thing is like, we do. We have this great or and it's not complicated to find, right? Like, so if
Right.
we talk about the G spot, which is like under in the like within the vagina, if up above, there's the periurethral gland. Not a lot of women, I want to say statistically, women, maybe 1 out of 10 or something like that, can have a orgasm without clitoral stimulation. So when you're asking women, are you able to have an orgasm with clitoral stimulation? Most can. Um, and most do
Mhm.
not have it without. But like, so we're designed, number one, to self pleasure because I can get there pretty, it's right there.
Right.
um,
Easy
you know what
access.
I mean? Like it's so, and that's, it's not hard to find. It's just hard to have with penis and vagina sex, but it's not hard to
Mm.
figure out how to stimulate the clitoris either. So, yeah, it's super interesting, right? Like,
Interesting. Well, I think culturally, I my first thought is, well, it's a threat, right? Like, because we can just take care of ourselves, we really
mhm,
need men to procreate. But other than that, like as far as pleasure, we can handle that. So I just
yeah,
wonder if that's kind of where it started. People started clutching their pearls and I was telling you before we started recording, I've been watching The Gilded Age. I'm kind of obsessed with it. The costumes are beautiful, but this idea that women had to have corsets and all these layers of clothes and couldn't be seen holding hands because it was inappropriate and
right.
all this pressure, but it feels like a double standard for the men because the men could do really whatever they wanted.
Yeah, don't
So I
don't have an
guess
expectation.
yeah, so and I agree with you, the Bible thing, it just doesn't hold water for me
Mhm,
because why would we be designed that way? If we were
right.
created, for pleasure, why shouldn't we be able to enjoy that? So, how do you think women can break free from that, and
Totally.
why in menopause does it shift, I guess? I mean, and I could just be speaking from my own experience, but is it because we run out of fucks to give to everyone else what other people think, or just we realize that pleasure is important and this idea that we can't have pleasure, that we're sluts because we want to have sex just doesn't hold true.
Yeah. So I think it starts like a change. The change starts like with our young boys and our young women. Like having those conversations. Which, I've taken it upon whenever I have someone, like a teenager, like when a young woman, because I don't see a lot of men. I have a little man, but not. I mean, he's 18. He's not really little anymore. But like, it's number one. It's not being afraid to talk about sex. It's not I think you need to model like you part of it's like not what I say, what I do. Like being sexual in your home doesn't mean fucking all the time, but like
Right.
showing connection to your partner. Like it is okay to be affectionate. It's okay to like whatever it is, you wanna like, my Matt always he, like every time I go by him, he is like, hand goes on my ass, like, it's just and if it doesn't now, because we've been married for so long, I'm like, "I don't know what's wrong." Like, you just get.
Are you
But I do
mad?
think, like yeah, exactly, there's a lot of different ways to show intimacy, and I do think showing intimacy in front of your children is important. I'm not talking about walking around naked and, like, them walking, like, all of the I'm just, like, holding hands, giving kissing each other, hugging each other, like touching each other, however it is, like, I think it's important for children to see that because that is a form of intimacy. And then talking about it, like it is very normal, like I said, for our children, they're not gonna stay children forever, they're gonna grow up to become, the same as us. Like, and I always like my discussion was always like this. I was like, "I don't know, when did you" like most people, like, "When did you lose your virginity?" If you think that your children are never gonna have sex, like, that's just asinine. And if you
Right.
look at yourself and how our children are growing up, I remember thinking, if my children if I was 16, if my kids are 16 by the time they have sex, I will consider that great. Awesome.
Mhm.
Like because but my thing that I've always said to my kids and to anyone that will listen is, especially with women, my 3 things are always, sex should be consensual. It should be a decision that you are making, not your boyfriend, not your girlfriend, not your friends. It should be that what it feels right to you. I believe in safe sex, so that you should be like, if you're going to decide to have sex, then be smart about it. Let's make sure we don't get pregnant. Let's use birth control. Let's use condoms. Always, you really always should be using condoms until you're willing to have that conversation. Like, how many pregnancies have you
Mhm.
had? Have you been tested? All of that. Um, and then it should be enjoyable. I think that's the biggest one, that usually if a mom is sitting with me with their kid, I'm like, I don't even look at them. I'm like, "You're welcome to be here," but, like, sex is supposed to be enjoyable. It can be a little awkward in the beginning, kinda like that first kiss, like, "I don't know that I'm doing this right," that sort of thing, and, but it's okay to, like, know that, and but also it can be extremely pleasurable, and it is supposed to. To my son, it's not all about you. I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, it's not all about you. You need to make sure that your partner is have enjoying themselves. Are they okay? Does anything hurt? Like you do need it's not all about you. I think that's super relevant. And I think more importantly, like you can stop at any time. Just because you
Mm.
decided this is what I want to do and I'm doing this, sometimes you're like, yeah, this position sucks. Like this is super uncomfortable. And I think that if more women knew that, because we have all been there. We have all been having sex and we're like, oh, this is not comfortable, but it's almost over or whatnot, or like, I don't want to restart or this sort of thing. And it's like, it's okay to be like, no, stop. Like, I don't like this position. Or for whatever reason, today this isn't working. Let's try this. And I also think it's okay to like, this is what works for me. This is what turns me on. This is what feels good. Like, I don't have to do back bends to have a great orgasm. Like, like, it doesn't have to be super like, there's certain positions now at my age that you're just like, "I like this position. This one feels good. I may" like, it's a pretty guaranteed home run here for me. Not all the but I don't need to, like, look in a book and, like, put my one leg up here and you
Pull a
can.
hammy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm gonna hurt myself. I need special pillows now. Like, that's my back. But,
Mm.
you know what I mean? I think that's the thing is it's like, it doesn't have to be it just like, sex is whatever you find enjoyable, and, like, it doesn't always have to like, it doesn't have to be penetrative. It can be whatever works for you, and that's I mean, I guess the one of the glories for women is, again, that clitoris is readily available. You
Well,
can make
and
it
I
work.
think and if if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe a good place to start if women are feeling uncomfortable kind of within their own sexuality and, some of the shame carried, if they did carry it, if not, great, is to really have that conversation
Mhm.
that you just talked about that you would have with children with your inner child, like writing a love letter or something to a younger version of you, releasing whatever you're carrying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is like, boys masturbate. No one questions that. Like it's not even a thing. I
Mm-mm.
think it's very common, but like somehow if a girl masturbates, like what? Why would and you're like you've got to know what you like before you can share that with someone else. How do you like to be
Mhm.
touched? Like is it soft? Is it hard? Is it do I like lubrication? Do I not? Like where do I like to be touched? What do I find, like, erotic? There's a scene from Friends, right, with Monica? Do you remember that? Like, she kept counting 7, 7, 1, 2,
7.
3, 1, 2 yeah. Like, so but again, there are, like, everyone has and, like, no one can tell you what your erogenous zone is. Like, some
Right.
people, it's their ears, some people, it's their nipples, people have, like, their toes, their finger it doesn't matter, but, like, being able to know what you like, to be able to ask for that and if you're in, I mean, like, sex can just be sex. Like when I think sometimes, I mean, again, like you can have great sex and you could be like, yeah, that's all that was. And I think women are able to do that. They really are. But like somehow we have been told that it's supposed to be this emotional connection, all of those things. I've been with Matt forever, for a very long time. So like there's a different connection. It is
Right.
different. There is, but with that, there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of like, like that. I don't have any shame in saying, hey, where maybe with a new partner, maybe I wouldn't. Or maybe I wouldn't, a new partner, you'd be like, I don't care. I'm never seeing this person again. Like, what do I care? So I think that's the thing is sex can just be sex for women. And everyone thinks
Mhm.
we have to have this, it has to be this big emotional thing for us. And I'm like, it can just be sex too. just like
Right,
men.
or like a commitment or,
Yeah.
well, that increases our number because the number seems to be very and I don't
Uh,
know if the number is important anymore, but I feel like
I don't know.
younger in 20s, maybe even 30s, that quote unquote
Mhm.
number was really important and
True.
why? Like where it feels the double standard again. Men can get
Yeah.
high five for having a lot of notches and women all of a sudden couldn't.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. And I mean, I think the thing is we have more consequences than anything. Like we have the burden of like pregnancy or not be, we have pregnancy, we tend to be the reservoir for STIs. So we do have to be a little more careful. We have to be like, I think that's the hardest part, right? So it's like, I would love for the fact that like when we talk about birth control and having to use condoms and stuff like it, like the burden does fall upon us, because we are the ones who are going to carry whatever burden happens, more than men will.
Uh-huh.
We need to be smart about our sexual practices, um, whether we're with one
Well,
person or with multiple people.
right, and getting tested, I mean, it's a blood draw. There's that,
Yeah.
it's like brushing your teeth to some extent or, it's part of your routine
Mhm.
maintenance. If you're
Yeah.
single, if you're sexually active, just making sure that you're taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
and then you can enjoy yourself. It's a really great way of self-care. I
Well,
think the way that I view it is, like pleasure is a
yeah.
wonderful form of self-care and
I
feeling
think
good
one of
is
the
good.
yeah, and one of the things, Diane, that is like this is like really hard for people to hear is what is our divorce rate? What's our statistic? 1 in 5? 1 in
It's
4?
I think so. It's pretty high. Yeah.
Do you from my perspective, do you think most people just all of a sudden they just got divorced? Like,
Nope.
so unfortunately, both men and women, like there is extracurriculars typically going on. So like even though you're
Uh-huh.
married and even though I trust like it doesn't really even have a trust. Like sometimes you're like, I wish that we checked women like that was just a routine part of our like I went in for my well woman exam and we did STI testing. There is. I have gotten reamed from someone where, like, my standard of care was always when you put an IUD in, you check for gonorrhea and chlamydia, not because I think you do, just making sure there's no infection. I don't know what the day happened, but I didn't have that conversation, and I normally do, and then they were just pissed that because they were like, "You're making this assumption that I am," or I'm like, "No, I'm not making any assumption." Like, it's really actually should be standard of care that we are checking for these things yearly, partly because you see it all the time. I found out my husband was cheating on me for the past 3 years.
Uh-huh.
I found out that he whatever, and I mean, and men women do it too, like, I've definitely seen that as well, but you're just like, "We really should just be testing and making sure." And you could maybe decline then, you know
Well,
what I mean?
right. Well, and isn't it also that a lot of times STIs can be
Yeah, I mean,
managed
no,
and
I
taken
would
care of?
most of them. It's just the viruses, like, you can't cure HIV and you can't cure herpes. You can help, like, manage it, but most of the other ones, I'm like, it's an antibiotic. And women, the thing is most men, a lot of times, like, if we're talking, like, gonorrhea, chlamydia, men don't know that they have it, so it's not usually a lot of times, I'm like, it can be, like, a non-malicious thing, they don't have any symptoms. And some women don't have any symptoms, but it can cause long-term effects. Um,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, we just went woo on this topic.
No, sex is important. It's an important part and to talk about, and I think just acknowledging that it can also be awkward and
Yeah,
whatever emotions and feelings that women may have surrounding sex, whether
yeah.
it's from their upbringing or religion or personal beliefs, great. If the conversation can become more objective
Mhm.
and less
Yes.
subjective and more when you go for a dental cleaning twice a year, you
Yeah,
go to the doctor and, get your annual checkup, just make sure
yeah.
everything's working appropriately.
Yeah, it should be a
Oh,
question. Like when we're talking about sex, like it should be a question. I think that should be very standard. I remember learning about like sexual health and I can't remember if I've told you the story or if it was here, but like basically I was like, okay, yeah. So I'm like, I have this 40-year-old woman and I was like, do you have any sexual concerns, any pain with intercourse? Like, are you able to orgasm? And she looked at me and just started crying. And I was like, what do we do now? Oh my God. Like, I don't know. And so I realized at that moment that no one's ever asked her. And then I was like,
uh,
wait, no one's asked me. Like, I've been going to the
mhm,
gynecologist since I was 15 years old, and no one has once asked me if sex is enjoyable or pleasurable. Am I able to orgasm? Do I have multiple partners? And not that I'm like, and I think the thing is like when I ask that question, I could give a rat's ass. I could care less. It's just like, hey, if you're having multiple
Right.
partners, then we need to be for sure need to be doing testing, and you probably need to be tested every 3 months. So it changes like as a provider what you should be providing for your patients.
Mhm.
But I just again, it's like that's where you're just like, who is supposed to be asking these questions? If my gynecologist is not asking me this question, like who where should I be getting like so
Right.
it should easily be discussed, and it's interesting, usually that's, like, not my usually first question, but it comes up pretty quickly, and, like, again, it's, like, kinda sharing with people if they're uncomfortable or, like and women are getting more open to be able to discuss this, like, I am yes, like, I am able to have an orgasm, but it's kinda lost its oomph, it can and then you're like, "Okay, that can be hormonal, is it blood flow? Like, let's what's going on there? Let's do a couple things," because I think that's the thing is we don't live in a world where, like, we can't do anything about that anymore. There
Right.
are, when you talk about perimenopause, like, is it a hormone issue? Is it a blood flow issue? Is it something else? Like, there are, in the world of peptides, it's like, okay, let's see, maybe let's do some oxytocin. Like, maybe we can, like, help with that. And utilize that, because like, oh, your hormones are actually in a good range. It's not that. Like, but there's a website I don't want to forget about. It's called Oh My God Yes, or it's OMG Yes.
Yep.
And it basically can teach you how to have an orgasm. It can teach you like self pleasure, which is kind of cool that it's out there. Like these things do exist that you can learn, especially if you've never done that, like, there are women who have never had an orgasm. And,
Wow.
like, is it because they're not self-pleasuring? Like, you have to like, there's a lot of layers there. So
Mhm. If you've experienced any type of sexual trauma, that is a lot to unpack, and you may not even remember or realize that you were exposed to or experienced
mhm,
that. So I think that's always another avenue to explore or to process because that trauma can be healed.
mm,
It's not easy, but it
yeah,
is possible
yeah,
to set that down and not carry it anymore. Is that
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of dissociation then when it comes to sex because, I don't I the memory I have here, like, it wasn't good, so I removed myself. Like, our body is very, very protective, our brain is very, very
Mhm.
protective, and so then we get in a loop with that, like, that sort of trauma of, "This is what I do to protect myself every time this happens." I think you have to recognize it and,
Mhm.
want to change it as well too.
Mhm.
But yeah, and
Mhm.
it's again, like there is yes, and to answer your question, yeah, that is definitely a thing.
Well, thank you. This is a conversation that will lead up to more conversations about sex, but I think this is the foreplay
Yeah,
part of it to just acknowledge it and recognize it. So be
perfect.
sure that you like and subscribe to our channel, and we will be back again next week.
Awesome. Have a good one.